I'm Jasper, widower, and for 32 of those years, I wore turnout gear that still smells like smoke and rain. I've pulled kids out window frames and watched roofs fold like cards. I thought my hardest day was the night I lost my wife in December 18th. The date slides under every sunrise like a shadow. I was wrong. My hardest day crept up on me with handshakes, flags, and a microphone. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Memorial Day, May 26. I organized a service because nobody else would tally the names of the fallen and read them with a steady voice. We had a modest budget. For $1,800 for flags and stands, $1,200 for the sound system, $700 for the reeds, $350 for coffee, and stale pastries at Firefighters for 10 to like. The Firefighters Relief Fund was supposed to cover it. Interest from the endowment, careful and clean. I used to audit those numbers by habit. Same way you check your SCBA before fire. Trust but verify. Enter Reed. My nephew, contractor with a showroom smile, and a truck that cost more than my house's foundation. He'd been sniffing around the department ever since he learned public bids were like unlocked windows. Lately he'd gotten close with Miles, the fund treasurer, and Fiona, the council liaison. New project. Reed kept saying, like a magician rattling a box. Something big. Transformational. He wore that word like cologne. 2 weeks before the ceremony, my daughter Riley, sharp as a Halligan, a paralegal who treats commas like court orders, drops a folder on my kitchen table. "Dad," she says, "tell me why a Memorial Plaza renovation needs a consulting phase billed at $600,000 and a contingency of 20%. She'd pulled the contract from the public portal, highlighted in neon, the way we use to mark hazards on whiteboards. I saw the trick. Multiple change orders pre-approved, a clause allowing expedited procurement, and a sweet little line that let a subsidiary, Wyatt & Company, a shell if I ever smelled one bill back materials management without itemization. $5 million, disappearing in polite paragraphs. I could hear the breathing of the station at night. Compressors thumping, lockers clicking, ghosts of the fallen standing at parade rest. $5 million meant fewer thermal imagers. No second rescue truck. A training tower postponed again. It meant standing over fresh names on next year's roll. "Are you sure?" I asked. Riley tapped another page. Zara, investigative. Remember her from paper? She confirmed Wyatt & Company lists Reed's address. Same mailbox. Same suite. And Miles approved the pre-bid paperwork in March, 3 days before public notice. "Dad, this isn't sloppy. It's designed." I brewed coffee like it could wash the taste out of my mouth. We planned quietly. I called Uma, who lost her husband on a January 24 collapse, and asked if she'd speak about why the fund matters. She said yes in a voice that weighed 100 alarms. I copied documents, stashed them in a battered turnout bag, my old lucky one with a burn on the left knee. If you're going up a rotten staircase, you bring what brought you home before. Memorial Day dawned with flags snapping in a sky so blue it felt staged. Reed arrived late, gold watch flashing, arm around Fiona, as if politics were a prom. He took the mic after the bell tolled and the bagpipes fell silent. "Today," he announced, "we honor our heroes with a visionary step forward. The Memorial Plaza Renewal Initiative, breaking ground in September. Renderings will blow your minds." Applause. Cameras. Miles nodding like a bobblehead on a dashboard. I felt my pulse climb ladders. Riley squeezed my elbow. "Now," she whispered, before he cements the lie. I stepped toward the podium. Turnout bag on my shoulder. The copies inside like stacked charges ready to detonate. Reed saw me coming and his smile thinned to a wire. "Uncle Jasper?" he said into the microphone, voice warm for the crowd, eyes calculating for me. "Care to say a few words?" "Just one," I answered and unlatched the bag. The crowd leaned in. The wind stilled. And from the corner of the stage, I saw Miles raise his phone, calling someone or dialing a signal, right as a pair of men in identical navy jackets angled toward me from the aisle. The 2 men in navy jackets moved like they belonged, calm, deliberate, scanning the crowd. They weren't volunteers. I'd seen enough security details in my day to recognize paid muscle. One of them had an earpiece coiled neatly against the skin. Riley's grip on my arm tightened. "Dad, they're here for you. Or for what's in this bag," I murmured. I could feel every pair of eyes on me as I stepped toward the podium. Reed smiled like nothing was wrong, like we were just two family members sharing a stage. The man in the earpiece slowed at the foot of the platform, watching my every move. This is a day to remember those who gave their lives. I began, voice steady. The microphone carried it across the green. It's also a day to remember what they stood for: honor, duty, sacrifice. Reed shifted beside me. And that's why I'm so excited about the Memorial Plaza renewal. I cut him off, which, according to these contracts, I unzipped the turnout bag and pulled out the copies, is being used to siphon millions from the firefighters' relief fund. A ripple of confusion rolled through the crowd. Murmurs, a few gasps. $5 million, I continued, hidden in padded consulting fees, pre-approved change orders, and a company, Wyatt & Company, that just so happens to share an address with my nephew. Reed's face froze in a politician's smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That's an outrageous accusation, Uncle Jasper. These are standard industry practices." I held up the highlighted pages so the front row could see. Standard? Tell that to the families of the men whose names we just read. This money could have bought new rescue gear, another truck, a training facility. Instead, it's heading straight into a shell company. The man with the earpiece took a step closer. Riley moved between us, phone in hand, already recording. "Back up," she said, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard. Reed reached for the microphone. "Let's not turn a solemn occasion into..." "Into what?" I snapped. "The truth." The second man in a navy jacket appeared at the side of the stage, speaking into his wrist. From the corner of my eye, I saw Miles, the treasurer, slip out his seat and head toward the parking lot. "Don't let him leave," I told Riley, nodding toward Miles. She hesitated for only a second before bolting after him. The crowd's murmuring had turned into open voices now. Questions, accusations, cell phones raised high. Reed's PR-perfect composure was cracking, his jaw tight, sweat starting to show at his hairline. "You don't understand," he started, but the words were drowned out by a deep, familiar voice from the back of the crowd. "Actually, Jasper's right." Heads turned. Zara, the city's internal auditor, was walking forward, a manila folder tucked under her arm. She mounted the stage like she'd been waiting for this moment. "I've been reviewing these same contracts for 3 weeks," she said, her voice carrying. "And what he's saying checks out." She tapped the folder. "I have the authorizations, bank transfer records, and payment schedules." The man with the earpiece froze mid-step, eyes darting to Reed. Reed's smile collapsed completely. "You don't know what you're talking about," he spat. "Oh, I think I do," Zara replied. That was when the first police siren wailed in the distance, too close for comfort, and the man with the earpiece reached inside his jacket. The sight of his hand disappearing into his jacket made my instincts kick in faster than thought. 32 years on the job teaches you to spot danger before the next breath. Hands where I can see them. I barked, stepping forward, my voice carrying the command tone that used to cut through fireground chaos. The man hesitated, his eyes flicking to Reed for direction. Reed didn't answer. He was too busy scanning the crowd, calculating exits. The sirens were louder now, winding down as they closed in. Zara moved closer to me, keeping her folder tight against her side. "Jasper," she whispered, "if they get that folder from me, this all disappears. Every proof page, every signature, it's in here." I shifted to stand between her and the man in the jacket. "You're not taking anything from her," I said. The second man had circled around the side of the stage, trying to flank us. His gaze wasn't on me. It was locked on Riley, who was sprinting back from the parking lot with Miles's arm gripped tight in her hand. She was dragging him through the grass like a stubborn dog. "Dad!" she shouted. He was trying to get to his car, had a laptop bag with him. Miles's face was pale, his mouth working, but no sound coming out. The first police cruiser pulled up behind the crowd, tires crunching gravel. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, hands resting on their holsters. The murmur swelled into shouts. Half the town was here, and word was spreading like wildfire. Reed saw the uniforms and made his move. He stepped toward the edge of the stage, raising his voice over the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a misunderstanding." But his words cut off when Zara dropped her folder onto the podium with a sharp slap and flipped it open for everyone to see. The top page, blown up in neon highlight, showed a payment of $842,000 to Wyatt and Company, approved by Miles' signature. The officers started pushing through the crowd toward us. That's when the man with the earpiece finally pulled his hand from his jacket, and I realized he wasn't holding a weapon. He was holding my late wife's locket. For a moment, my brain refused to make sense of it. That locket hadn't been seen in years. Silver, oval, with her initials engraved, so fine you had to tilt in the light to read them. I'd given it to her on our 15th anniversary, and after the fire that took her, it had vanished. "How the hell do you have that?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. The man didn't answer. His eyes stayed on me, unblinking, like he was gauging whether I'd lunge for it. He held it up between two fingers, just high enough for Reed to notice. And that was when I saw Reed's reaction. Not confusion, not surprise, but recognition. The crowd noise faded to a low hum in my ears. "Where did you get it?" I repeated, stepping closer. The man tucked the locket back into his pocket. "Not here," he muttered. "We should talk somewhere else." I took another step, but the police reached the stage. One officer moved toward Miles, who was still in Riley's grip, while the other approached Reed. "This man's been stealing from the relief fund," I told the officer, pointing at my nephew. "There's proof right here." But my eyes stayed locked on the man with the locket. Zara whispered beside me, "Jasper, focus. We've got them cornered. Don't get distracted." Easy for her to say. She didn't know that locket was supposed to be sealed in the evidence box from the fire investigation. The investigation that had ruled my wife's death an accident. The man backed away, melting into the dispersing crowd as the officers began questioning Reed and Miles. My gut twisted. He was getting away, and with him, maybe the one answer I'd been missing for a decade. Riley noticed my stare. "Dad, who was that guy?" "I don't know yet," I said, watching his navy jacket vanish between two parked cars. "But I'm going to find out." The officer at the podium asked me to make a statement. I stepped forward, my hands braced on the wood, but my mind was already somewhere else, on the glint of silver in that man's palm, and what it might mean about the night my wife died. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. The caller ID read, "Unknown number," and the message that flashed across the screen stopped my breath cold. "Meet me alone if you want the truth about the fire." I slipped the phone back into my pocket before Riley could see the screen. The officers were still trying to untangle the financial mess in front of them, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. The fire. 10 years ago. The night my wife died. I'd gone over that night in my head 1,000 times. The call, the smoke, the collapse. But never once had I imagined someone would reach out a decade later claiming to have the truth. When the questioning wrapped up, Reed was led away to a waiting cruiser, shouting about political vendettas and misinterpretations. Miles followed, his laptop bag now in police hands. The crowd began to break apart, buzzing with rumors. Riley caught my arm. "Dad, come on, we should go home. The cops will take it from here." "Yeah," I said automatically, though home was the last place I wanted to be. I walked to her car, gave her a quick hug, and told her I'd meet her later. She didn't press, but I could see the question in her eyes. Once she drove off, I opened the text again. No name, just the same number and one more line. 1 hour, Pier 6. Pier 6 was at the far end of the industrial docks. Half the warehouses there had been abandoned since the shipping company pulled out. Not exactly the place you meet for a friendly chat. I drove there with the windows down, the smell of the river thick in the air. The sun was dipping low, casting the water in a copper sheen. My headlights swept over cracked pavement, rusted fencing, and a row of leaning street lamps. At the end of the pier stood the man in the navy jacket, hands in his pockets. A gull wheeled overhead, its cry sharp in the stillness. "You came," he said when I got out. "Start talking." I said, "Why do you have my wife's locket?" He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me, because it didn't burn in the fire like they told you. I pulled it from her neck myself, before the blaze reached her. A cold shock ran through me. Before? You were there. He nodded slowly. I was hired to be. I stepped closer. By who? The man's eyes flicked past me, toward the shadow of a warehouse, and his face changed. They're here, he said, and if you want to live, you need to run. For a second, my boots felt glued to the cracked pier. The wind off the water whipped my jacket, carrying the faint reek of diesel and something sharper, burnt metal. Run. I said, Who's here? The man didn't answer. He was already moving, cutting between stacks of rusted shipping containers. I turned toward the warehouse shadows, and that's when I saw them. 2 figures stepping into the dim light. Not cops, not dock workers. Dark clothes, ball caps low, moving in sync like they'd rehearsed it. One of them raised a hand, and the glint of steel caught the fading sun. I ducked behind a forklift, my heartbeat slamming in my ears. The man in the navy jacket hissed from the next row of containers. This way. We zigzagged through the pier skeleton. Old pallets, broken ladders, pools of stagnant rainwater, until we reached a gap in the chain-link fence. He shoved me through first. They're not after me, he said, breathing hard. They're after what I gave you. You gave me nothing but questions. I shot back. He reached into his jacket again. This time no hesitation, and pulled out the locket. He pressed it into my palm. Open it when you're alone. You'll see why she died. Before I could speak, a sharp crack split the air. The sound of a bullet smacking metal rang out behind us. We hit the ground instinctively. They'll kill for it, he said, eyes wide. You have no idea what's inside. We crawled under a low section of fence, coming up in the shadow of an abandoned dry dock. He glanced toward the street, then at me. Go. I'll lead them off. You won't make it. I warned. He smirked faintly, not planning to. Before I could stop him, he sprinted into the open. 2 more cracks echoed, and he stumbled but kept running. I bolted in the opposite direction, clutching the locket so hard its edges cut my skin. When I finally reached my truck and slammed the door, I allowed myself one shaky breath. Then I looked up into the rear-view mirror and saw a figure sitting in my back seat. My stomach dropped. In the dim reflection, I could just make out the shape, broad shoulders, hood up, face in shadow. Drive. The voice said, low and calm. My hand inched toward the door handle, but a cold click stopped me. Not a gun, handcuffs. He dangled them in one hand. You try anything stupid, and you'll be wearing these until we find somewhere quiet. I gripped the wheel. You working for Reed? A humorless chuckle. Reed's just a small leak in a bigger pipeline. I'm here for what you took. My fingers tightened around the locket in my pocket. You mean this? Don't play games, Jasper. He leaned forward just enough for me to catch a whiff of motor oil and cigarette smoke. You have no idea how far this goes. Hand it over, you walk away breathing. Not happening. He sighed, the sound heavy with patience running thin. Then we'll do it the hard way. I felt the cold metal of the handcuffs brush my wrist. My other hand shot for the ignition, twisting hard. The truck roared to life, and I slammed it into gear. Gravel sprayed as we fishtailed out of the dockyard. Stop the damn truck, he barked, grabbing my shoulder. Instead, I jerked the wheel sharply right. He slammed into the door with a grunt, giving me just enough space to reach under the seat. My fingers closed around the handle of the old rescue axe I kept there, a relic from my firefighting days. I swung it up fast. He blocked with his forearm, but the force knocked the cuffs from his hand. They clattered to the floor. The truck swerved onto the main road, headlights streaking past. You don't want to do this, old man, he growled. You're right, I said. I want answers. He reached for his waistband. I didn't wait to see what came out. I slammed the brakes. His body lurched forward, hitting the dash. I yanked the axe free and leveled it at him. Out, I ordered. His eyes narrowed. This isn't over, Jasper. He opened the door slowly and stepped into the night. I peeled away, heart still hammering, the locket burning a hole in my pocket. I didn't notice the small GPS tracker stuck under my rear bumper until much later, when it was already too late. I didn't head home, not with the kind of heat tracking me now. Instead, I swung the truck toward the outskirts of town, where the old volunteer fire station sat like a forgotten relic. They were planning to tear it down next month. No power, except for a single bulb in the office. No reason for anyone come snooping around. Perfect. The place smelled of dust, oil, and stale coffee. I shut the door behind me, dragged a folding chair under the lone light, and set the locket on the scarred table. For a long moment, I just stared at it. 10 years of grief had hardened into something else, something sharper. I'd buried questions because the answers hurt too much. But now those answers were in my hand, and I wasn't going to blink. The class fought me, stiff from years untouched, but it gave way with a small snap. Inside was no picture, no lock of hair, just a micro SD card, taped to the silver with brittle, yellowed electrical tape. I pulled it free, set my old department laptop on the table, and slid the card in. This laptop had no internet connection, just a local drive I used for archiving station records. Safer that way. The screen blinked to life, showing a single folder. No name, just a date, December 18th, 15, the day my wife died. I opened it. Dozens of video files, each stamped with a time code. I clicked the first one. Grainy black and white. A fixed angle security footage from our living room. My wife was pacing, phone to her ear, her face tight with fear. She stopped suddenly, turning toward the sound of a door opening. From the frame stepped a man in a firefighter's turnout coat. No helmet, no mask. Even in the fuzzy image, I knew that face instantly. Miles. My chest tightened. I hit pause, then skipped forward through the files. More footage from different angles, all the same night. Him in the kitchen, him pulling something from a duffel, my wife trying to back away. I reached the last video. Timestamp. 11:46 p.m., 15 minutes before the fire report went out. He was in the garage. He poured something from a red container onto the floor. Gasoline. My hands trembled. I slammed the laptop shut, my pulse hammering. This wasn't just theft from the relief fund. This was murder. Then I heard it. A sharp metallic clang from the far side of the station, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps on the concrete, and a voice, low but clear, cutting through the shadows. You shouldn't have seen that, Jasper. The voice came from the darkness beyond the office doorway, deep and calm, like it had all the time in the world. My hand slid toward the rescue, axe leaning against the table leg. "Miles," I said, my tone flat. He stepped into the light, not in turnout gear this time, but in a dark jacket and gloves. His eyes weren't frantic. They were steady, calculating. "I figured you'd dig eventually," he said, "but I didn't think you'd get proof." I gripped the axe handle tighter. "You killed her." He didn't flinch. "You don't understand what she was going to do. She was about to ruin everything, not just for me, for the entire department. By exposing you, by exposing all of us," he said sharply, then took a step closer. "It started years before that night. She got in over her head. Jasper started poking at deals she didn't understand. If you'd known then what you know now, you'd have made the same choice." My blood boiled. The hell I would. He glanced at the closed laptop. "That card isn't enough. No chain of custody. A good lawyer tears it apart in 10 minutes. But if you give it to me, maybe we both walk away from this. And if I don't," his eyes hardened, "then you don't walk away at all." He moved first, fast for a man his age, but I'd been in enough close calls to react without thinking. I swung the axe up between us, the blade catching the light. He stopped just shy of the swing, his hand reaching inside his jacket. I didn't wait to see what he pulled. I kicked the table into him, sending the laptop skidding to the floor. He stumbled back, cursing, and I bolted for the side exit. The cold night air hit me like a slap. My boots pounded the cracked pavement as I made for the truck. Behind me, Miles's footsteps closed in, quicker than I expected. I fumbled for the keys, then froze. Through the windshield, sitting in the driver's seat, was Reed. and he was holding my truck keys in one hand and a pistol in the other. Reed's pistol was steady, his eyes cold. Miles slowed to a stop behind me, trapping me between them. The old volunteer station seemed to shrink, its cracked pavement closing in. "Get in the truck, Uncle," Reed said. "We're going for a drive." I stood still, my breathing even. "Where?" "Somewhere you can't cause trouble," he replied. "You're making it worse," I said. Stealing from the fund was one thing. Murder is another. Reed smirked. "You think Miles works for me? You got it backward. I work for him." The words sank in like ice. Miles stepped forward, his voice low. "You're in over your head, Jasper. You've been chasing ghosts. But what you've stumbled into, this doesn't end with the fire department." "I've got the proof," I said. "That card." Miles scoffed. "We'll have that before the night's over." And then his gaze shifted to the horizon. "You'll be nothing more than a tragic accident. Fitting, don't you think?" Reed jerked the pistol toward the truck. "Move." I walked slowly, my hand brushing the handle of the rescue axe, still wedged between the seat and the door. Reed was close enough now that I could feel the heat from his breath in the cold air. "Open it," he ordered. I did, and in the same motion, I swung the door wide. The edge caught Reed in the wrist, the gun clattering to the ground. I kicked it under the truck. Miles lunged, but I grabbed the axe, bringing the blunt end up between us. We collided hard, stumbling across the lot. Reed recovered fast, diving under the truck to reach for the gun. I stomped down on his forearm, but Miles drove a shoulder into my ribs. The air shot out of my lungs. He grabbed my jacket collar, yanking me upright. "You could have just let it go," he snarled, "and let you get away with killing her." I rasped, "Never." Before he could swing, headlights swept across the lot bright, blinding. A car screeched to a stop. "Dad!" Riley's voice. Miles cursed, shoving me toward Reed. "Get the gun, now." Riley was already out of the car, something metallic in her hands. Not a weapon, my old turnout bag. She threw it at me. I caught it, unzipped it, and felt the weight of the thick, printed contracts in the laptop inside. Everything I needed to bring them down. Reed saw it too. He lunged. I turned to run toward Riley's car, but a deafening shot rang out. The impact slammed into my shoulder, spinning me sideways. I hit the pavement hard, vision swimming. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Miles's voice calm, almost casual. "Finish it before anyone else shows up." Boots crunched on gravel, coming closer. And I realized Reed was standing over me, pistol raised, finger tightening on the trigger. The muzzle of the pistol seemed impossibly large from where I lay, the cold seeping through my back into the bone. My shoulder burned where the bullet had grazed, or maybe buried itself. I couldn't tell through the rush of adrenaline. "Reed!" Riley's voice cut the air, sharp and furious. "Drop it." He didn't even look at her. "You're going to watch your old man die," he said, his finger tightening. Riley stepped forward, something glinting in her hand. It wasn't a gun. It was a heavy brass coupling from a fire hose, the kind that could crack a skull if swung right. "Last warning," she said. Reed laughed. "You don't have it in you." He was wrong. She threw it, fast and true. The coupling hit his wrist with a sickening crack, sending the pistol spinning into the dark. I rolled to my good side and drove my boot into his knee. He went down hard, howling. Miles reacted instantly, pulling a folding knife from his pocket and charging toward Riley. I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the pain, and intercepted him. The blade slashed through my jacket sleeve but missed skin. We grappled, the knife between us, breath steaming in the cold night air. "Give it up." I snarled. "You don't get it, Jasper," he hissed. "This is bigger than both of us. Bigger than the department. If this gets out, a lot of people go down, and not just the guilty ones." "That's the point," I said, wrenching the knife from his grip. Behind me, Reed was dragging himself toward the pistol. Riley saw it first. "Dad!" she shouted. I spun, the knife still in my hand. Reed froze when he saw my face. For a moment, no one moved. Then a distant sound cut through the tension. Sirens again, closer this time. Miles glanced toward the road, calculating. "We're not going to jail for this," he said. "Not tonight." Before I could react, he grabbed Reed by the collar and hauled him toward my truck. They dove in, the engine roaring to life. I ran after them, but my shoulder screamed with every step. The tires spun, gravel sprang, and the truck fishtailed out of the lot. Riley was already pulling me toward her car. "We can still catch them." I shoved the turnout bag onto the back seat and climbed in. My vision tunneled. My focus locked on the taillights disappearing down the road. "Hold on," Riley said, flooring it. The chase tore through back roads and into the outskirts, the truck weaving dangerously. I could just make out Miles in the driver's seat, Reed clutching his knee beside him. Then up ahead, the truck swerved hard into an unlit side road leading toward the river docks. "They're trying to lose us," Riley said. We followed, headlights cutting through the dark. The road narrowed, lined with warehouses and chain-link fences. Finally, the truck skidded to a stop outside a corrugated metal building. Miles and Reed jumped out and vanished inside. Riley reached for her phone. "I'll call it in." The building's side door swung open again. A new figure stepped out, silhouetted by the dim light inside. It wasn't Miles. It wasn't Reed. It was Zara, and she was holding a shotgun. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. Zara, the straight arrow auditor who had stood beside me at the Memorial Day ceremony, was now framed in the doorway of a dark warehouse, cradling a pump action like she'd been born with it. She didn't look shocked to see us. She looked prepared. "Out of the car, Jasper," she called, her voice carrying easily over the wind. Riley's grip tightened on the wheel. "Dad, that's Zara. She's on our side." I kept my eyes on the shotgun. "Not tonight. She's not." Zara stepped closer, boots crunching gravel. "This isn't what you think. I need what's in that bag." I shifted my body, so the turnout bag was between us. The evidence? The videos? Not happening. Her jaw tightened. "That evidence will get you killed before it ever sees a courtroom. You don't know who you're up against." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what Miles told me." She hesitated, then glanced over her shoulder toward the warehouse. "They're inside, and if you go in there without me, you won't come out." "Then why are you here with them?" I asked. Her eyes met mine, steady. "Because I've been inside this thing for 2 years, Jasper, trying to get high enough up the chain to see the whole picture. Tonight was supposed to be the end of it, but you accelerated the timeline." I didn't know whether to believe her. The sirens from earlier were long gone. Out here, it was just us, the shotgun, and the yawning dark of the warehouse. Zara lowered the barrel slightly, not enough to make me relax. "We don't have much time. If you want the truth about your wife, it's in there, but you'll need me to get to it." Riley's voice was tight. "Dad, this feels like a trap." "It probably is," I said. Zara stepped aside, motioning toward the open doorway. "Your call. But once they know you're here, there's no turning back." The wind shifted, carrying a faint chemical smell from inside. Gasoline and something sharper, acrid. I took one step toward the door. That's when the lights inside the warehouse snapped on all at once, and I saw my own firefighter's helmet hanging from the rafters, spattered in dry blood. The sight of that helmet stopped me cold. It was mine, my old station number still stenciled on the front, the reflective tape scuff from years of calls. But the blood, that was new. "Where did you get that?" I demanded. Zara's gaze didn't waver. "Inside." I stepped over the threshold, Riley right behind me despite my muttered, "Stay close?" The warehouse smelled of oil dust and that same chemical tang I'd caught outside. The place was a maze of stacked crates, old machinery, and shadows deep enough to hide an army. Overhead, the helmet swayed slightly from a chain, as if the air itself was holding its breath. From somewhere deeper in the warehouse came the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate. Miles emerged first, his jacket gone, shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows like he was ready to work. Reed followed, leaning on a cane now, his knee clearly giving him trouble. "You made it," Miles said, his tone almost welcoming. And you brought the bag. Good. I held it tighter. Not for you. Reed's smile was thin. You think you're holding the winning hand, old man, but all you've got is a matchstick in a hurricane. Zara stepped between us. Enough. If we're doing this, we're doing it now. Miles looked at her, and for a moment I thought I saw recognition, maybe even approval. You finally picked a side, huh? She didn't answer. Tell him. Miles said, gesturing to me, tell him why his wife had to die. Zara's jaw worked, like the words cost or something. She was about to leak everything, names, dates, accounts. She wasn't just going to take down Miles. She would have burned the whole network. That's called justice, I shot back. It's called suicide, she said. You think you can carry this alone? Once you cross that line, they won't stop until you're in the ground. Riley's voice cut through. So what's your plan, Zara? Keep playing both sides until you end up like her? Before Zara could answer, a deafening boom echoed through the warehouse. The far wall shuddered, and a column of dust and debris exploded inward. Through the haze stepped 3 men in tactical gear, black masks, rifles up, moving with military precision. Miles smiled grimly. Looks like the decision's been made for us. The lead man's voice was flat, mechanical. Everyone on the ground. Now. And his rifle was aimed directly at Riley. The sight of that rifle trained on Riley flipped a switch inside me. My pulse spiked, but my voice came out steady. You don't want to do this. The lead man didn't answer. His finger was firm on the trigger, the barrel never wavering from my daughter's chest. Down, he barked again. Riley's eyes locked on mine. No fear, just the kind of stubborn defiance she got from her mother. Slowly, she lowered herself to one knee, keeping the turnout bag clutched to her side. Miles raised his hands in mock compliance. Gentlemen, you're a little early. We were just about to settle this. The man's gaze flicked to him. Orders changed. Package retrieval is now priority. My gut told me package meant the evidence. And maybe me. Zara edged closer to me, her shotgun still in her hands but pointed down. 3 of them, she whispered. Maybe more outside. You see a gap, you take it. Before I could respond, one of the masked men peeled off toward Reed, yanking him to his feet. Reed winced, clutching his knee, but didn't resist. The leader turned to me. Bag. Now. I shook my head. Not happening. He tilted his head slightly, as if disappointed. Then she dies first. The rifle muzzle shifted back to Riley. Everything seemed to narrow. The echoes of boots on concrete, the faint creak of the helmet still swaying overhead, the chemical sting in the air. Miles spoke up suddenly. Wait. You kill her, and Jasper digs in deeper. You want this clean, you take the bag and let them walk. I'll make sure he stays quiet. The leader considered it, then gave a curt nod. Bag. Riley's grip tightened. For a moment, I thought she'd refuse. But then she slid it toward them across the dusty floor. The man slung his rifle, scooped up the bag, and passed it back to another operative. As he turned, I saw something in his vest pocket, a small, silver oval glinting under the overhead light. My wife's locket, not the one I had. A second one. Before I could react, the leader raised his rifle again, not at Riley this time, but at me. Change of orders, he said coldly. He doesn't walk out. The barrel of the rifle stared me down like a black tunnel with no end. My muscles tensed, waiting for the shot. Dad. Riley's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. The leader didn't flinch. Kneel. I didn't move. My eyes locked on the glint in his vest pocket, that second locket. Where did you get that? I asked, my voice steady despite the adrenaline tearing through me. He ignored the question and took a step closer. Zara's voice broke in, sharp. If you kill him, you lose your leverage. You think his death won't raise more questions than answers? The people who sent you won't like that kind of noise. The leader paused, head tilting slightly as if weighing her words. You offer me something better? Yeah, she said. A clean exit with both lockets and no bodies. You know what those mean, and you know what's in them. Killing Jasper just adds fire you don't need. For a moment, The air hung heavy with the choice. Then the leader lowered the rifle slightly. Not enough to make me breathe easier, but enough to tell me he was listening. That's when the helmet overhead came crashing down. It hit the floor with a metallic clang that echoed through the warehouse. In the same heartbeat, Riley lunged sideways, kicking the rifle out of his hands. The weapon skidded across the concrete, and chaos erupted. I dove for the rifle, but one of the other operatives intercepted me. We slammed into a stack of crates. There was splintering around us. My shoulder screamed with pain, but I drove an elbow into his gut and grabbed the barrel. Zara pumped a shotgun once and fired, the blast deafening the enclosed space. A masked man spun away, clutching his leg. Miles had vanished into the shadows. Of course he had. Reed was crawling toward the open side door, dragging his injured leg. The leader recovered fast, pulling a sidearm from his thigh holster and aiming it squarely at Riley. She froze, hands halfway raised, her eyes flicking to me. "Put it down," he shouted at me. I leveled the rifle back at him. "Let her go." "No," he said, and his finger began to squeeze the trigger. That's when a voice boomed from the rafters above. "Drop it." A figure stepped into the light high on the catwalk. A man in full turnout gear, face hidden by a soot-blackened mask. And in his gloved hand, he was holding a third locket. The man on the catwalk didn't move at first, the glow from the hanging bulbs catching on the soot smeared across his mask. Every set of eyes in the warehouse locked on him. The leader's pistol wavered. "Who the hell?" The figure's voice cut through the echoing space, deep and ragged. "You've all been playing with fire. You don't understand." He lifted the third locket, holding it between two fingers. "And this is the fuse." Something in his tone made the leader hesitate. Riley edged toward me, her eyes darting between the stranger and the operatives. Zara, shotgun still up, looked like she was putting puzzle pieces together she didn't want to see. The masked man continued. "Inside, each locket is part of the truth. One card alone tells a story. 3 cards tell everything. Names, accounts, orders. Who lit the match? Who paid for it?" My pulse thundered. "And my wife." He looked down at me. "She found all 3. That's why they killed her." The leader snarled and swung his pistol toward the catwalk. But the masked man dropped behind a steel beam just as a single shot cracked. It hit nothing but metal, the ring echoing. Chaos erupted. I lunged forward, grabbing Riley and pulling her behind a stack of crates. Zara fired again, taking down another operative. The leader barked orders, but his men were scattering, the plan unraveling. From above came a clatter. Then the third locket landed at my feet. I scooped it up, shoving it into my pocket with the other 2. The masked man's voice rang out again. "Get them out, Jasper. End this." I didn't think, I just moved. Riley and I bolted for the side door, Zara covering us. The leader lunged into our path, but I swung the rifle but into his ribs. He crumpled, gasping, and I kept running. Outside, the night air hit like a shock. We made it to Riley's car, tires screaming as she floored away from the docks. By dawn, we were in the district attorney's office. 3 lockets on the desk, their microcards lined up like evidence in a trial that hadn't even started yet. The DA's eyes widened as she scrolled through files. Emails, bank transfers, signed orders. Miles, Reed, city officials, developers, and names I didn't recognize high up the chain. Within hours, warrants went out. By evening, Miles was in custody. Reed, too. Zara testified under protection. The leader of the masked team? Still out there, but bleeding somewhere, his network in shambles. The masked man from the catwalk never came forward. Maybe he was dead. Maybe he just vanished back into the smoke. But he'd given me the last piece I needed. A week later, I stood at my wife's grave. The winter air bit at my face as I placed the 3 empty lockets on the stone, side by side. "They can't hurt anyone else now," I told her. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "It's over." The wind moved through the trees like a long sigh. Riley's hand slipped into mine. "You ready to go home?" "Yeah," I said, but my eyes stayed on the lockets, the silver catching the pale sun. Because deep down I knew one thing. Fire leaves embers. and some members never go out. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.